Welcome to Show You the Money.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Show You the Money with attorneys Rob and Keith Shindler, founders of Shindler and Shindler. They're brothers, they're trial attorneys, and they're known for going head-to-head with insurance companies to get real results for injury victims across Northern Illinois. I'm Sean O'Connor, and today the three of us are talking about why hiring a local trial lawyer can make a real difference compared to working with a big 1-800 firm. So we're going to get right into it. Guys, good to see you.
Hey, Sean, nice to see you.
So this, everybody, anybody who lives in a city or listens to the radio hears various firms talking about, call today, don't delay, 1-800, yada, yada, yada. But, what does the process look like inside a big 800 firm like that, after someone signs up with them? What are, this is like a behind the scenes question.
Sean, I think that we offer a very good service to our clients because if you want to think of us as a boutique law firm, when the client calls us, they talk to us. When a client calls one of those bigger firms, they talk to a customer service representative or a case manager. Well, case manager number one, case manager number two. So you're going to call, you're going to get to talk to the actual lawyer who you're talking to on the phone. And so I'm sure that the other law firms are very organized and managing thousands of cases is my guess, where we pride ourselves on being a little bit selective on the cases that we take. And we want to make sure the case we take that we can work ourselves. And so when a client calls, it's almost akin to when you go to the doctor's office and you have an appointment with Dr. X and the nurse walks in and does everything for you and reports back to the doctor. Well, we don't offer that service. You call us, you're going to talk to us. And you hire us, we're going to be working your case. And to me, that's the biggest difference from a customer, from a client success experience.
Sean, it's funny because whenever we answer the phone and someone asks a question like, why you? Because where we're at, there's 50,000 lawyers and growing. And what I explain to them is I just say, look, you know those firms that advertise like 5,000 times a day on television and have 50,000 files? They're unbelievable marketers and great advertisers. My brother and I, we rarely have more than 150 cases going at a time. And the reason is, to us, if you have more than that amount of cases, how the heck are you going to give people the care and the attention and the time that they deserve? And he is right about, when someone says, why you? The truth is, we don't have an answering service. We don't have any voicemail. People are amazed. On Sunday, someone called me at 4:00 in the afternoon. They said, can I get a message to the lawyer? I say, yeah, talk. He goes, what do you mean? I said, because you're talking to the lawyer. Okay. Right. And it just works for us. Right. And we also, just so you know, we do things a little differently, but I tell the client, as does he, you're going to call the office one time because after that, you're going to have our cell phone. And if you have a question, a lot of times things are keeping you up at night. We don't want people going to sleep with a heavy heart. They'll call our cell phone sometimes, not only on the weekend, but at night. Sure. The challenge is some of those bigger firms, those 800 numbers, those great advertisers, try and get their cell phone. That's not going to happen.
Yeah. I'm curious about that. It's different business models, I guess. Are those guys franchising, so to speak, or is it really just they're doing a national advertising thing and the calls are going into a switchboard?
I don't think that they franchise. I think what they do is get into a market by associating with a law firm that's already in the market and say, okay, you're our boots on the ground, essentially. And from a volume of cases, Sean, I do think that some of these big law firms sign up like 20 cases a day. And that sounds so impressive if that's what the kind of law you want to practice. The kind of law we want to practice is quality while personal attention, personal service. And the one thing I think that we're proud of is, we're not America's largest law firm. And we're happy about that. We're very happy with what we did, how we represent our clients and what we do in the marketplace.
We may be America's smallest law firm. How about that for an advertisement? But the truth is that we just chose this route. We didn't come up with the idea to answer our own phones. We answered our own phones because at the beginning the phones weren't ringing. And so we were racing to the phone. And then all of a sudden we felt that people love that and people appreciated that and people knew that if they had a question, they can call us directly. So I just think everyone that model works for those guys. And again, they're great marketers, great advertisers. For us, when someone calls us and they say it's David M, for example, we're going to know who David M is, and we're going to know what their case is about without having to talk to a case manager or someone in a different location. We'll know exactly who they are and what they need to hear.
And listen, and one more thing on that point, Sean, is we've had clients come to us and say, I'm currently represented. It doesn't happen a lot, but occasionally I'm currently represented by one of the big firms in the market, and they don't know what's going on with their case. They're not able to get a call back. And so we've inherited some of those cases or absorbed some of those cases because we provide a different level of service.
Right. Well, it's interesting too, because most people go through this kind of situation once and they don't, when they're having the experience, say with one of these massive firms, they don't know from an attorney relation. You know what I mean? Like they haven't had the experience to compare it to. Like everybody's been to a restaurant and knows when they're not having great service.
Right.
But I don't necessarily have a preset notion of how my attorney would be handling my accident case. So until of course it gets so out of control, you're like, I'm going to call somebody else. But I'm curious, comparing and contrasting for people, what actually, like in the day-to-day changes and how that case is handled when you're dealing with a local lawyer. I mean, you mentioned the cell phone number and hey, that personal relationship and, probably in your state or whatever, but are there other specific things that people can expect working with you guys?
When you're involved in an accident, just I don't care. We happen to be in Illinois and the outlying areas. When you're involved in an accident on a certain route or a certain road, we know exactly where that road is and exactly where that route is. We know exactly if that road is under construction. We know exactly if there's been other accidents in that vicinity. We're local, so we don't have 5,000 cases, but the cases we have, we dive in the deep end from the beginning. And at that beginning is such a crucial point, because if there's mistakes that are made, and I'm not saying any big firm makes mistakes, but a lot of times you can't help it, especially if you have so much volume. If there's a mistake made at the beginning and certain evidence is not retrieved, certain statements aren't taken, it's very difficult time to circle back. So it's great. We love that they handle their stuff and they're in their ocean, and we kind of love that we're in our little lake, so to speak.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, stuff when you're in those kind of numbers, things fall through the cracks. And that I like the idea of, Route 17 is notorious for, cars jumping that median or whatever it might be,
Right. Good point.
Also, on the local side of things, how does a lawyer's willingness to actually show up and go to trial change the way an insurance company is going to handle the case?
Well, I for sure think that insurance companies have a database, and they know if a law firm will accept the first offer and be done with the case and just bump and run with it, or if the lawyer is going to give pushback and when necessary file a lawsuit. So because we're willing to file a lawsuit when necessary, I would imagine that everything is data driven. And so when the insurance company looks up at the claim on their computer screen, it probably has some type of scoring for the lawyer. And I believe I'm almost certain of it. So they know that we're going to make the guy a first offer, $2,000 over the medical bills. They're going to take it because they got a ton of cases, right? And you settle enough of those cases, you're making money adds up. And so from an insurance company perspective, and these insurance companies sometimes dominate the marketplace, they could have 25% of all drivers insured. So they know every attorney out there. And I do think that there's some scoring mechanism or grading mechanism that goes on.
And I think that the phrase maybe is turn 'em and churn 'em, right? I mean, he's right. You get $2,000 settlements, $4,000 settlements. That may not seem like a fortune to some people, but when you're settling 25, 30 cases a day, you do the math. And not to sound overly dramatic, but we don't believe in turn 'em and churn 'em. We believe in earn 'em. it is good. I got it this morning and I rehearsed it in the mirror. Sean, did that come out?
Yeah.
And it came out good, right? All right. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I think
So-
in post we may put a beat to that.
Yeah.
Get a-
I think we should do the next one in a rap. You know what I'm saying? But I think it's also important to know, listen, not every case deserves to go to trial. So I'm going to kind of go in the alternative. What you say is that, they need to know that we will go to trial. They need to know that, and I think they do know that. But I think the other important thing goes back to that smaller fish in a bigger pond, right, versus a big fish in a small pond, is that when we call, there's only a certain amount of adjusters at State Farm or at Allstate or American Family. And when we're doing it just to us, this is it. You better, we may have faces for radio, but you better like us, because all you got is us. You're going to call, we're going to pick up the phone, we're going to do the interviews, and we're going to handle your cases. Most of the time, both together. So the adjusters start to know you. And when you're kind, and when you're nice, and when they know that you're not, one of those, don't think for a second that doesn't change the dollar figure sometimes, and maybe avoid having to go to trial and still do the right job for the client, which is what it's
that's
all about
interesting.
when all the smoke clears.
Yeah, I love this. We sometimes forget with all the, the legalese and contracts, whether it's in, injury law or other, business and what have you, is that behind all of this ultimately is a couple of humans dealing with a situation, and the idea that the adjuster from State Farm and the woman who does it for Progressive, etc. Like, you can really avoid a lot of unnecessary rigmarole and get stuff done, which is, just keeps things moving along. So we got a couple minutes left, and kind of up from a practical point of view, we've got listeners out there, and what would you tell them are red flags, early signs that the lawyer that they've been in touch with isn't actually going to handle the case personally?
Well, it's interesting because on both of our phones, on my text messages, I don't erase any text messages. I have them labeled, this is a Shindler and Shindler case, and it's not, Aunt Gertie, and I miss Aunt Gertie. So every day, what we do is we go through that phone, okay, and that client gets a call, and that client sometimes is shocked. Wait, is my case settled? No, case not settled. Just calling to see how the I know you had a procedure, you had an MRI last week or yesterday, and we're just checking in. It kind of blows their mind. So I think the first thing that goes is the communication. If you're not getting a call back, right? I mean, we get calls from a person that's involved in an accident on Monday. Tuesday, they call us, what's going on in my case? You would think that would be annoying, and it could be. But the point is that's their case, and they chose us instead of one of those 50,000 lawyers. So they deserve to get a call back, right? And we don't leave the day without everybody who calls getting a check mark or an X. And I think so, in answer to your question, the first thing that goes, if you're not getting communication at the beginning of the case, as the case goes on, why would you expect the communication to get any better? And there's only two of us. When you start to talk to 5, 6, 7 different people and they mispronounce your name or they forget the date of the accident, I think that speaks for itself, and we kind of don't need to say anything.
I could imagine when you call in to the larger law firms and they say, "What's your file number?" Well, our clients are not numbers to us. They're, as you said earlier, and we completely adopt that. These are humans that we're dealing with, and our goal is to make sure that we do a really good job and overachieve for a client, because we know in the future, whether it's a month or a year or years later, they're going to refer their family to us, and we're proud of that.
You mentioned earlier, Keith, I think, this idea that occasionally you do end up absorbing, or getting a client that has had that kind of experience or an unsatisfactory experience with one of the bigger firms. How often does that happen?
I would say we get calls from clients who are represented by other firms a couple times a week. And we don't take all those cases, because sometimes it's a simple misunderstanding, or sometimes the other law firm evaluated the case and decided not to sign up the case because it lacked merit or something like that. But I have a case it's active right now in court, going through what they call the discovery process. It was at a very large firm, one of those firms that may have dozens of billboards and dozens of commercials every day. And the client here's the first offer. They send it to the client. It wasn't good. It just wasn't a good offer. And whether it's because of the law firm that was representing them or the facts of the case, it didn't matter, because when I evaluated the medical bills, I knew it was screaming, there's a problem here. And so we took the case and we're litigating it, and the client's going to get a lot more money than they were offered from the first time.
And I will tell you this, what he tried to do on this situation, and I don't want you to think that, we should rename our firm the Goody Two-Shoe firm, because we're here to get the case. We're here to resolve the case. We're here to make the client money. And, let's be honest, the more money we get the client, the more money that we get. But what he did is he called the law firm, the other law firm, and he said, look, this person came to me and they came to my brother and I, and they want to switch lawyers. I just thought I'd put that out there, that if you wanted to maybe contact a lawyer. Now, let me tell you something. You think that those every other billboard on the highway are going to call Keith and Rob saying these people called and they want to switch with us? So that it goes back to the same thing. Again, not to be cliche, you said something about just being, our dad up in heaven taught us something. Just be kind, man. If you're kind, you're going to get anything you want. So and they didn't care about the fact that they were losing the case, because they have 50 others like that. But we did, and I promise you, we're not going to share with them once the case is resolved, because it won't make their day. So, anyways, but there are certain ways to handle situations, and I'd like to believe that my brother and I handle them the way that you'd want someone to handle your situation.
That's it for today's episode of Show You the Money. If you'd like to learn more about working with Rob and Keith Shindler, or if you have questions about your current situation, you can visit their website, schindlerandshindler.com, or call the number 847-WE-FIGHT. Thanks for listening. I'm Sean O'Connor, and don't forget, do us a favor, leave a review, leave some thumbs ups, and subscribe to the show so you don't miss the next episode.
Thanks, Sean.
Have a great day.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.